Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Flame Emperor episode number 25 based on novel. So let's start. In the face of this terrifying martial arts attack, Xiao Yan also snorted coldly, and then raised the ancient ruler of different fire in his hand. As the milky white flame energy around his body fluctuated more and more violently, a trace of substantive fiery energy suddenly emerged from nothingness. It penetrated out of the space and finally wrapped around Xiao Yan's body, spinning wildly. With the rotation of these energies, a gust of wind suddenly emerged and swept out in all directions. The big tree in the sky is trembling. The flame divides the wave ruler. With Xiao Yan's loud shout, the originally pitch-black heavy ruler also burst into gorgeous colors, and then Xiao Yan raised the heavy ruler with both hands and faced the oncoming longsword light. Violently hacked past. A scorching, terrifying power radiated from the ancient ruler of the eternal fire, and then formed a shock wave as high as 100 meters, whistling away at the light of the longsword that was blowing in the face. The heavy ruler and the light just touched each other, and then the light resisted for a few seconds, and then instantly wilted at a speed visible to the naked eye. The shock wave also attacked the martial illusion with a long sword in his hand like a broken bamboo. Wu Huan's face also darkened at this time. He had obviously underestimated Xiao Yan's strength before, because Wu Huan also found that the moment he took off the heavy ruler from behind Xiao Yan's aura instantly soared. The pinnacle of Samsung Do Di. Wu Huan's smile that he had won the ticket was also lost in front of Xiao Yan, who was suddenly at the peak of the 3-star Do Di. How is that possible? Wu Huan looked at Xiao Yan in disbelief. But at this moment, he couldn't care about so much. Wu Huan snorted coldly, and then his whole body was filled with fiery red aura, like a long sword in his hand. Above the long sword, another beam of light that was stronger than before attacked Xiao Yan. Wu Huan is also clear that facing Xiao Yan, who is also at the peak of the 3-star Do Di, if he doesn't work hard, he will end up. Boom! Another wave of terrifying attacks. This time, the light of the long sword wielded by Wu Huan was once again dissipated by the flame shock wave. However, Wu Huan returned to normal after a brief surprise, and then he also had a plan in his heart. Since this is the case, then he can only use his strongest means. Wu Huan believes that even if this Xiao Yan is jumping, he will not be able to do it. It is not worth mentioning even under his strongest attack. After receiving Xiao Yan's terrifying attack, Wu Huan's arm jerked violently, and then the long sword pointed diagonally at the sky, and then the long sword suddenly pointed at Xiao Yan with the sound of breaking wind. The terrifying dark energy spilled into the ground along the air, and immediately, the surrounding trees and boulders turned into powder in an instant. Prisoner bird! A thunderous shout suddenly sounded, and at the tip of the long sword, a fiery red grudge like a mountain torrent erupted. The overwhelming fiery red light, with an incomparably sharp and piercing sound, pierced through the space like lightning and shot directly at Xiao Yan in the distance. Wherever the fiery red light passed, the entire sky trembled slightly. The full blow of this martial arts is so terrifying. Xiao Yan's jet-black pupils were almost shrouded in a fiery red sword light that covered the sky and the ground. As the primary target, Xiao Yan could feel what a terrifying and fierce offensive contained within that fiery red sword light. However, this is the case, Xiao Yan also has absolute confidence. Any offensive will have to dissipate under his own strange fire. A mouthful of slightly hot air was deeply sucked into his lungs. Xiao Yan took a slow and strong step forward in that mid-air. He held the ancient ruler of eternal fire in his hand high above his head. On his arms, the blue veins were exposed, like a wriggling line. Like a snake. The next moment, Xiao Yan's arm trembled, and the ancient ruler of eternal fire in his hand suddenly fell. Two wild shouts suddenly sounded, and immediately, above the heavy ruler, a huge milky white ruler, 100 feet tall, shot out with a terrifying potential like a broken bamboo. The moment Chimang shot out, the space was like a lake that was thrown into a boulder, and there was a huge fluctuation. The originally intact earth, a 100-meter-wide crack, spread rapidly along the trajectory of Chimang. The gigantic milky white 100-jong Kaimang flashed out of Xiao Yan's hands like a lightning, and wherever he went along the way, the tiny energy from the Kaimang's light overflowed, directly causing the surrounding space to be shattered. In the sky, 100-jong-sized fiery red dazzling sword light occupies half of the sky, and it is also a 100-jong milky white red glow, which shoots straight out like a crescent moon. Two extremely terrifying attacks are about to start a crash like a meteorite collision. In midair, the milky white ruler light and the fiery red sword light finally collided fiercely in the next moment. However, the collision in the sky was not the shocking explosion that resounded through the sky as imagined, but strangely, there was no sound at all. The sky is like the milky white and the fiery red that two groups of water of different colors are fighting back and forth. Although this confrontation is extremely quiet and silent, the space becomes extremely distorted where the two terrifying energies come into contact. An unreal, eerie feeling. In this quiet place in the depths of the Warcraft Mountains, there is a faint hissing sound coming from the energy fighting back and forth in midair, milky white and fiery red, like two huge clouds, covering the sky deep in the Warcraft Mountains. The seemingly peaceful confrontation, but they all hold the idea of devouring the other side. Xiao Yan stared at the two huge groups of energy in the midair, behind that 100 feet of light. His whole person was as if he had collapsed, his face was slightly pale as paper, and his body was swaying. If he had not touched the ground with a heavy ruler in his hand, he would have been unable to stabilize his body and could only fall from the air. Down. Obviously, this time, he completely used the 7th layer of breaking the sky ruler and the 1st layer, and completely squeezed out the last trace of vindictiveness in Xiao Yang's body. Fortunately, Xiao Yang was an alchemist, and as soon as he landed, he took out several medicinal pills from the ring, and devoured it under Wu Huan's envious gaze. Compared with Xiao Yang, Wu Huan was not so lucky. He fell from midair in an instant. Was no better than Xiao Yang, but his face was the same. Pale as paper, he stared nervously at the energy that the two groups in the air were constantly eroding and swallowing each other. The eyes of the two of them at this time stayed in the air. For a while, deep in the demonic beast mountains, they seemed to be waiting for the result of the confrontation between the two energy groups with extremely terrifying destructive power. The two milky white ruler glows and fiery red sword glows that were constantly swallowing and entangled in the sky were abruptly like boiling water, fluctuating violently, and immediately the two of energy suddenly swelled in the eyes of the two of them. Looking at the two huge groups of energy that suddenly and strangely swelled up, for some reason, the two of them felt a sense of unease. When the expansion reached a certain critical point, the two huge energies suddenly stopped all movements, and a strange deep luster, like a tiny light spot, suddenly appeared. With the appearance of the strange luster, the space suddenly fluctuated. Xiao, the strongest blows of Yang and Wu Huan seemed to have a little mutation between the contact and swallowing each other, and in this situation, even they themselves feel extremely dazed and surprised. The spot of light rapidly expanded in the two groups of energy. At the end, the spot of light became more and more dazzling, and the fluctuations in the space became more and more violent at this moment. The dazzling light shone from the sky. When the energy of the sky and the earth was rampant, the milky white and fiery red energy group finally couldn't bear the change of energy. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion, carrying an extremely terrifying storm, came from the air. It swept out from the middle, the storm passed, and the space oscillated. Boom boom boom. The terrifying milky white ruler glow and fiery red sword glow finally exploded completely. A circle of ripples spread from the place where the milky white ruler orn and the fiery red sword orn meet. The originally silent mountain range of beasts is also bursting into flames at this moment. The roars and roars of the sky are constantly coming from all directions. In the demonic beast mountains, Xiao Yang's figure also quickly retreated. At the same time as he retreated, a delicate jade bottle appeared in his hand. There were several exquisite medicinal pills in the jade bottle, and he quickly stuffed the medicinal pills into his mouth. In the middle of the game, he successively used the Buddha's Fury Fire Lotus and the most terrifying 7-layered sky-breaking ruler, which was also quite a huge consumption for him, and at the same time, he also used his soul power to condense the Huangquan Qianwu, taking advantage of Wu Huan. When resisting the terrifying Caimans that couldn't sense the surrounding situation, it quietly exerted and detonated the power of Baizhong Radiance that broke the sky. In the fierce battle, Xiao Yang's sudden anger caused Wu Huan's soul to be attacked viciously, so he was sluggish for a second, and then Wu Huan could have escaped from the center of the explosion. This soul attack was wrong. At this time, Wu Huan was also completely swept by Xiao Yang into the most destructive area. After Xiao Yang's several attacks, even a strong man who has truly reached the 4-star Do Di will definitely fall into serious injuries if he is caught off guard. Xiao Yang knew all about the power of one specifically attacked the soul, and the other possessed a destructive power like destruction. The three combined into one, the power was terrifying. The storm was like a natural disaster in the void, frantically releasing a terrifying temperature and a destructive shock wave. That kind of shock, even Xiao Yang, did not dare to be easily touched. Although the power of the 7th layer breaking sky ruler and the Buddha's Fury Fire Lotus are extremely powerful, the strength of Wu Huan is also extremely tyrannical. In addition, this person is a little weird. I am afraid it is difficult to kill him. Xiao Yan's figure was quickly retreating. At the same time, his eyes flashed rapidly. Roar? And just when this thought passed through Xiao Yan's heart, the huge flame storm in the distance trembled violently, and the speed of rotation actually gradually slowed down. Then, it was filled with crazy killing intent. The sound of roaring roars came from the flame storm. Sure enough, he didn't die. Hearing the roar of rage, Xiao Yan's heart sank slightly. He wanted to kill a 3-star Do Emperor peak powerhouse with one blow. It seemed a bit whimsical. However, since he was promoted, he has not been able to stabilize his realm, so it is also difficult to deal with martial arts. Bang! Not long after the roar of rage sounded, huge claws of dozens of feet stepped out from the storm fiercely. Immediately, a figure was forcibly swept out of the flame storm. Blood-red eyes, filled with incomparable resentment, stared at Xiao Yan in the distance. This figure was the original majestic Wu Huan. At this time, he looked extremely embarrassed. On the originally slender figure, blood was flowing like a stream, and deep wounds were covering him like a ditch. The body, vaguely, can still see the white bones in the wound. Obviously, although this guy survived the terrifying power of Huang Quanqian's anger and the 7-layered sky-shattering ruler, he also paid a great price for this. Little bastard, die for this young master. Wu Huan's face was hideous, he coughed violently, his mouth full of blood was spit out by the terrifying force, his arm turned into a huge energy slap, and he slapped Xiao Yan's head fiercely. Go down. Xiao Yan can also feel that the Wu Huan at this time is only the end of the force, and this attack is too weak, and it is scattered away with a wave. Under the effect of obtaining the medicinal pill, Xiao Yan's strength was also partially restored, and he was too busy to deal with several large and small scars on his body, so he walked slowly towards the place where Wu Huan was located. Since this is the case, then there is still the principle of letting the tiger return to the mountain. Xiao Yan also muttered to himself. Xiao Yanzi, be careful, I always feel that something is not right. The Golden Dragon King also stared at Wu Huan and said. Xiao Yan slowly approached Wu Huan, and the eyes above Wu Huan's figure also looked very ferocious, as if something was waiting for an opportunity on his forehead. This is. The sudden change made Xiao Yan stunned for a moment, and then he quickly regained his senses. Just as he was about to dodge in a hurry, an extremely gloomy pitch-black light suddenly flashed across his eyeballs. The jet-black light swept across and shot Xiao Yan's shocked gaze back, because he saw that there seemed to be something on Wu Huan's forehead. It's actually a blood curse. The Golden Dragon King exclaimed from the ring. Hearing this, Xiao Yan also frowned tightly. Apparently it was the first time he heard of this so-called blood curse. What exactly is it? I didn't expect to encounter a blood curse in this small Wuchen. The infiltration of this alien race is really deep, the Golden Dragon King also said in a Vicissitudes of Life. Master, although I don't know what this blood mantra is, I am a disciple of teacher Tuo Shi and your nephew. This will never change. Xiao Yan also smiled slightly and looked at the master Jinlong Wangdao, who was hesitant to say anything. Ha ha ha, I'll be at ease with your words. The aliens are suppressed and sealed outside the Dakian world, but they keep trying to erode our Dakian world, so there are greedy humans who are loyal to the aliens in the Dakian world. This blood curse is a kind of extraterrestrial. It is a secret method used by the evil race to control them. It is a secret technique that enables those loyal to them to increase their strength through blood curses. However, its price is too heavy. The after effects are also quite terrifying. To be planted with this blood curse is equivalent to serving the aliens for the rest of your life, for eternity. Even the soul must be driven by the aliens, but these people can also get them. What you want, strong strength or something, but in the final analysis, it is impossible to escape the end of being swallowed by that foreign evil race. And look at the rune on Wu Huan's forehead, there are 3 bloodshots. The blood spells are divided into 7 grades, the first and second grades are the most common, the third and fourth grades are somewhat extraordinary, and the 5th and 6th grades are people trusted by the evil tribes outside the territory. As for the 7th grade, it has not appeared for a long time. The driver of the 7th level blood curse is close to the pinnacle of Do Di, and he has a place even in the alien race. The Golden Dragon King also looked at the 3-color blood curse on Wu Huan's forehead and said slowly. I can't believe that this Wu Huan is the owner of the 3-color blood curse, so it means that their family has a certain position in the foreign evil clan, and they can't stay. Xiao Yan also recovered in a brief shock, and then his body vindictiveness slowed down. Slowly wrapping his palms, he walked away towards Wu Huan, who was close at hand. Xiao Yang, do you think you can kill me like this? It's too naive. Ha ha ha. Wu Huan also looked at the flaming palm that suddenly came, and then he was not afraid at all, and said with a grim smile on his face. Wu Huan's voice just fell, and then the three-color bloodshot on his forehead seemed to feel the deadly threat, and then a thick dark light emerged. Black rays of light emerged, and Wu Huan's originally seriously injured and dying body was slowly healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Because of Xiao Yang's background, the consumption just now is not small, and it will not be able to restore the peak in a short time. The seemingly tyrannical palm attack is easily resolved by the dark light of Wu Huan. Go back. This demonic energy is not something you can handle now. A careless move is very troublesome, the Golden Dragon King said suddenly. Hearing that, Xiao Yang also distanced himself from this martial arts. There was also a slight smile on Wu Huan's grim face. The pitch-black fighting chi slowly repaired Wu Huan's dying body, and then the fighting chi in his body recovered a little. He immediately lowered his head and stared at Xiao Yang. Obviously this time he underestimated Xiao Yang's strength, but fortunately he has blood. The power of the incantation, otherwise it would be a lot of mischief. Go back. Seeing the huge pitch-black orb repairing his body, Wu Huan also shouted loudly, and then the pitch-black grudge slowly retreated to his forehead. After doing all this, Wu Huan carefully recalled the battle just now, but he was defeated for a long time, and he almost lost it. At this moment, Wu Huan also had a retreat in his heart. He had dared to fight Xiao Yang before. On the one hand, it is because Xiao Yang is a person wanted by that force, and he has a three-color blood curse on himself, and he is confident in himself. He came to fall into the trap, but he never expected that the current Xiao Yang was completely different from what he saw in the initial attack. Just the endless variety of methods made his heart tremble. It seems that we can only retreat first. Presumably, the good fortune in this ruin was also obtained by him, but since he killed and absorbed the soul power collected by the envoy, the people of that force will inevitably find trouble with this kid. I'll save the time and kill this kid again. This thought flashed through his heart, and Wu Huan finally decided to stop fighting. He looked up at Xiao Yang, who seemed to be blundering again, and retreated sharply, wanting to retreat into the depths of the chaotic beast mountain range. Middle, where to go? However, just as Wu Huan stepped back, an icy voice suddenly sounded behind him, and at the same instant, there was an extremely hot and terrifying wind. The sudden attack made Wu Huan's complexion change, and his body turned around quickly like a conditioned reflex, and his palms filled with fiery red grudge hurriedly greeted him. Bang! The fierce wind suddenly spread out at this moment, and Wu Huan, who rushed to meet the enemy, suddenly felt suffocated in his chest, and his body was shaken back more than 10 meters. Standing where he had previously backed away. Xiao Yang. Looking at the figure, Wu Huan suddenly gritted his teeth. Although Wu Huan has a three-color blood curse, he is also very clear that once he really uses the power of this blood curse, his future will be over. When he thinks that he will be driven by that evil person every day in the future, Wu Huan. I feel very uncomfortable. Xiao Yang's face was expressionless, milky white flames lingered around his body, making him look like a fire god, stepping on the void, step by step towards Wu Huan. Damn! Xiao Yang, don't force me, otherwise. Seeing Xiao Yang's appearance, Wu Huan couldn't help narrowing his eyes and said coldly. The corners of Xiao Yang's mouth raised a sharp arc, and the vast milky white grudge quickly condensed in the palm of his hand. You still want to kill me with your strength that you don't even have in the middle stage of the 3-star Do-D? Wu Huan laughed angrily. When his face changed, he hurriedly turned around to meet him, his palms danced, and his powerful fighting chi formed an airtight energy network in front of him. Bang! Xiao Yang didn't care about anything else, he swung his fist, and every time he swung it, there would be a piercing, sharp wind-breaking sound, the space cracked, and dark cracks appeared. Bang! In the face of Xiao Yang's fierce offensive, Wu Huan also secretly complained in his heart, and his figure kept retreating. Xiao Yang's current strength almost suppressed him to the point where he could only defend. If this continues, sooner or later it will fall into Xiao Yang's hands. It seems that we can't entangle anymore. ******* boy, this account will be remembered by young Master Ben, and you will pay it back sooner or later. Wu Huan screamed viciously in his heart, and the palm of his hand suddenly increased, forcibly shaking Xiao Yang's body away. Offensive, the toes are a little empty, and the figure is flying upside down. Suddenly speeding up, the figure was in the air. Wu Huan just breathed a sigh of relief. A dangerous feeling suddenly filled out from the depths of his heart, and the cold hairs all over his body stood upright at this moment. Huang Quan refers to Huang Quan Palm. Just when Wu Huan's heart was filled with a sense of danger, a slight cold shout brought a little cold wind, and it sounded like a ghost in Wu Huan's ear. Not good. Feeling the movement behind him, Wu Huan's face was instantly pale, and Xiao Yan's speed was faster than he expected. Bang! The Wu Huan who reacted, only the remaining fighting and rushing surging in the body, but it has not completely formed a defensive shield behind him. A milky white handprint and fingerprint about the size of a slap quietly landed on his back. On the top, the terrifying energy gushed out like the Xiong River at this moment. Boom! Xiao Yan's attack hole went straight through Wu Huan's back. A weak feeling came from Wu Huan's whole body. Looking at the hole about the size of a fist in his chest, blood flowed out like a stream. It's time to end. Since you are in the company of that foreign evil race, then I will send you to hell. Although Xiao Yan had not seen the so-called foreign evil clan with his own eyes, he knew from the mouth of his master Jin Longwang that the foreign evil clan was an unforgivable person, and he was ruthless in the face of Wu Huan. Raising the heavy ruler in his hand, he revived his recovered vindictiveness and then slashed viciously at the place where Wu Huan was staying. Now both of them are seriously injured. This blow is enough to kill Wu Huan. The Kai-On on the ancient ruler of Yihuahang slashed viciously towards Wu Huan. Wu Huan also struggled desperately, but his severely injured body couldn't walk at all. Attacked. Wu Huan also gritted his teeth slightly, and then a flash of determination flashed in his eyes. Obviously he was going to use the last resort. Seeing that dozens of feet of light approached the seriously injured and dying Wu Huan, a familiar aura appeared in front of Xiao Yan. Qiang. A black chain appeared directly in front of Wu Huan, and the dozens of feet of light were instantly resisted. Jie, worthy of being an imperial alchemist, your soul power should be quite delicious. Under a black cloak, a sinister sneer came out. Soul clan? Xiao Yan also shrank his pupils tightly, and then looked solemnly at the man in the black cloak beside Wu Huan. Because he felt the same blood power from the man in black as the people in the Soul Hall of Dochi continent. Damn! There is actually a soul clan in this Dudi continent. Xiao Yan was also at the moment when the man in the black cloak appeared. Combined with the pitch-black chain in midair, he determined at a glance that this was the usual method of the Soul Palace on the Dochi continent. However, how could this Soul clan still exist on the upper plane of the Dodi continent? And it is exactly the same as the Soul race on the Dochi continent. Did your father ask you to come? Wu Huan also calmed down decisively. Anyway, as long as he didn't release the full power of the three-color blood curse, he wouldn't be demonized. You're still useful, it's not the time for you to die. Glancing at the dying Wu Huan, the black cloak said coldly. You know too much. This is your sleeping place. Turning his head to look at Xiao Yan, the gloomy voice under the dark cloak made the surrounding space tremble slightly. Crash! Accompanied by the sound of the man in the dark cloak sipping coldly, the countless dark chains made of unknown materials burst out from the black fog in a violent manner, then intertwined and crossed each other, and finally fell ruthlessly. At the place where Xiao Yan was, the chains shook, and all of Xiao Yan's escape routes were blocked. Damn! Xiao Yan also scolded secretly. The strength of this man in the black cloak may have already reached the peak of the 4-star Do Emperor, and he could not resist at his peak, not to mention the state of serious injury now. Master, it seems that you are going to work hard. Xiao Yan also said solemnly. Not in a hurry, I will insist on meeting. The Golden Dragon King was also quite satisfied, and going through such an intense battle was also of great benefit to Xiao Yan's strength. Boom! In the face of these chains, Xiao Yan could also feel the cold and evil power from them, and the only remaining power suddenly exploded. Constantly poured out of his body, burning those jet-black chains. After all, the milky white flame was formed by the fusion of 23 kinds of different fires. Once it was wrapped around the chain, there were countless screams, and black mist continued to pour out of the chain, desperately resisting the burning of flames. At the moment when the man in the jet-black cloak appeared, Xiao Yan also knew that today must be a desperate fight. The blood essence with terrifying power was instantly wrapped in milky white flames. It is the blood essence obtained from the bloodthirsty dragon lizard before, which evokes the bloodthirsty defense shield, and even the strength of this pitch-black cloaked 4-star fighting Emperor peak is enough to resist a blow. Crack! Under the struggle of the milky white flame, some jet-black chains were directly burned with some small cracks. At the cracks of the chains, black mist surged, and faintly, there were small hideous faces emerging, which looked extremely strange. If Xiao Yan was at his peak, he would definitely still have the strength to fight back against the dark cloaked man, but after coming out of the attack, He had not had time to stabilize his realm after absorbing the energy of Yin Yang, and after a fierce battle with Wu Huan, he could now handle it. Also quite exhausting. Feeling the tiny cracks on the chain, the man in the black cloak suddenly increased his strength. Wu Huan's complexion also changed slightly. He did underestimate Xiao Yang's strength before, but with the family in front of him, this Xiao Yang would definitely not be able to escape today even with 3 heads and 6 arms. Lock! Hearing his stern shout, I saw that the handprint of the man in the black cloak changed, and a thick black mist suddenly burst out from his sleeve, and then turned into countless souls with hideous faces, howling miserably, overwhelming the sky. Facing Xiao Yang, who had been blocked for a long time. Bang! These ferocious souls filled with black mist just touched Xiao Yang's body, and they were directly burned into nothingness by the milky white flame, but even so, their number was extremely terrifying. Thousands of them were black and zero. The soul that controlled the mind was like a moth to a flame, rushing towards Xiao Yang with a suicidal madness. Looking at the miserable howl that filled the sky, and finally all the souls that were burned into nothingness by Xiao Yang's milky white flames, Wu Huan's complexion was also a little ugly. Means. These bastards. Xiao Yang's face was ashen as he scolded through gritted teeth. After dealing with it just now, it was obvious that the man in the black cloak didn't do his best, otherwise Xiao Yang's current situation would be very dangerous. But going around like this made Xiao Yang feel like he was in a desperate situation. Jie, do you want to go all out? But it's too late now. Seeing Xiao Yang's demeanor with a blood-colored defensive shield all over his body, the man in the black cloak also burst into a strange smile, and immediately waved his sleeves, creating a strange black mist. Quickly poured out of its body, and finally condensed into a dark cloud layer in the sky. Even the sunlight above the sky was difficult to pour in. For a time, the sky where the demonic beast mountains was located instantly became darkened. The Black Cloak Man's action is to cover the sky and the sun. Even a 4-star peak powerhouse can't help but be shocked. This power is really terrifying. Black clouds shrouded in darkness, and the man in the black cloak seemed to be invisible, disappearing strangely. In an instant, the entire sky became extremely quiet. In this creepy and strange environment, even the 4-star D powerhouse is the only one who is uneasy. The strange overcast wind drifted quietly. Xiao Yang's eyes, whose whole body was wrapped in rich milky white flames, shrank suddenly, and immediately turned around and punched the empty space behind him with a fist move. The surging soul power that filled the whole body also moved along with it, and the dry fist seemed to cause the vibration of this space, mixed with a powerful and unparalleled wind, and smashed it fiercely. Boom! Where the fists landed, a black shadow appeared strangely, the fists collided, and ripples of energy like real energy spread out in all directions, and finally brought a muffled sound like thunder in the sky. The fist staggered, and the two figures disappeared again strangely under the gazes of countless eyes. After a moment, when they reappeared, they were already 100 meters away. For a time, thunder rolled in the sky, and silhouettes flickered. The appearance of will cause a thunderous explosion due to the collision of extremely powerful forces, causing countless people below to be terrified. Above the sky, the black clouds are rolling, and when there are occasional fluctuations in strength, the thick black cloud layer just cracked a gap, allowing a beam of sunlight to pour in, but at this moment, even the sunlight, it makes people feel nothing. Warm meaning. Bang! The bloodthirsty dragon defense shield on Xiao Yang's body was also shattered at this moment, and the fighting chi on his body was about to be exhausted. Susu, it seems that God doesn't help you. Suffer to death. The black cloak's handprint changed, and the huge chain contained terrifying power, and it rushed towards Xiao Yang, trying to kill him with one blow. Just as Xiao Yang was about to take on the challenge, a hearty laughter suddenly appeared behind him. A terrifying Lingfeng also instantly dissolved the chain's attack easily. It's not your turn to point fingers at the person I want to protect. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.